Yes, sir.
Getting ready.
In the heart of the forest, legends awaken from the shadows. The tales of Sasquatch echo through time, a mystery that remains unsolved.
As the smoke clears, the sign stands resolute, a beacon of intrigue. What secrets lie within the forest's depths? The quest for truth begins at Sasquatch Watch Radio. Here's Billy Willard and Gary Kendrick.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is Monday, May 12th, 2025, and we've got a great show for you tonight. Before we bring our two special guests on tonight, let's pull our other host in here, Gary Kendrick. How you doing, Gary?
Hey, Billy. How are you, buddy? Got a quick shout out, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
For my buddy Brandon, old B-Dog, and at John Flanagan Dam for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Happy birthday, brother.
Cool deal. All right, so we got our, I think we got our usual class in the chat room here. Got Tennessee Cherokee. We got, what else I see in here? Got Robertson. Dirtbag Squatching is in. And the rest of them will probably follow suit. So usually takes them a few minutes, but pile in, guys, because we'll have another trivia question tonight. See who's going to win a prize. We got what? Got two left. Two prizes left. So got to see who. So far, I tell you what, you know who's been making out? Jeffy Smith. Everybody's been winning the prizes and sending them to Jeffy. That's cool. That's it. So that's fine, guys. Keep it up. We enjoy it. All right. So without further ado, first I'm going to bring Dan in here. How you doing, Dan?
Doing great. How you guys
Hey,
doing?
man. Doing
All
wonderful.
right.
See you again. Happy
I
Monday.
think everybody probably remembers you, Dan, but I'm going to let you introduce your part that's coming in.
Yeah, we got a special guest tonight, Mr. Mike McMahon, and SEAL Team 1 together back in the 80s and the 90s. As a matter of fact, Mike took my place as the operations LPO at SEAL Team 1 when I retired in May of 99, which just a few weeks ago, or a few weeks from now, excuse me, will be 26 years already since I retired. But me and Mike have known each other for a long time, been friends, and he's actually the co-founder and the vice president of Big. And Mike moved to Florida from Colorado last year in August, September, but he's still active with us. And he's going to be at the conference in a couple of weeks, which is 12 days away now. But
Wow.
yeah, it's here already and it's going to be great. But yeah, Mr. Mike McMahon, and he's a great friend, great SEAL. And I'll let he can talk about himself now.
Go for it, Mike.
Thanks, Dan. Hello to you guys.
Well,
Thanks for having me on today.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, like Dan said, we've known each other since '88, and we've been friends ever since. So we've always been in touch. I think there was a small period we got out of touch for a few years, but we got back in touch. I went to Dan's a retirement party he had from another job after he got out of the Navy, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go look for Bigfoot?" And I said, "Well, I don't know much about it, but sounds like fun. Let's do it." So we worked on it. He performed big, and we
Sounds
took
like
off from there
fun.
and had some adventures so far. But like he said, I did move to Florida. So what I'm working on now is trying to locate some areas to do some reconnaissance on this end in Florida, and see if we can contribute a little from this part of the country.
Yeah, just watch out for those skunk apes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I hear. So if
They
I
like
see
to
one,
use
you'll be the
people.
first to know.
Yep.
They really like to use people for tree knockers.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get AI to create that for me. I'm having trouble with that.
I made a joke with Mike when we first started doing this. I said, "Hey, if one ever grabs me by the ankles at night and starts using me for a tree knocker, just keep the camera running."
That's right. I mean, somebody's got to film it. Somebody's
Yeah.
got to film it.
Yeah, that was pretty funny when I came up with that joke. But
Somebody's got to live to tell the tale.
That's
Yeah.
right.
well,
So
Like-
where do you want to go tonight, Dan, with our conversation?
we can start. Let's get everybody to know Mike pretty well and better, and
All right.
let Mike. Matter of fact, we can start with the Charlie platoon pictures. I say,
All right.
I'll let Mike tell you about them when they come up.
All right. Let me move everybody to the side. If it'll let me. There we go. And we'll start presenting some image files here. Let me start with, like I say, if it takes it out of order,
88.
see what we got here. There we go.
There you go. That's a
You can see how
classic.
young I am. The second on the left.
Look at them young kids.
At that point, I think I might have been 19 because I deployed overseas at 19 in Dan's platoon. Someone in their platoon got hurt, so I checked in on the quarterdeck. My very first assignment to SEAL Team 3, and there was a senior chief there on the quarterdeck, and he looks at me, and he had a dip in. He's spitting in a cup, and he's a Southern boy. And he looks at me with this serious stare, and he goes, "You ever been overseas?" I go, no, chief. And he's like, "Well, you better get to supply. You leave in a week." So headed over to Subic at age 19.
He didn't have a clue what he was getting himself into.
And the thing
No,
about it
I
is, real
didn't have
quick,
a clue.
yeah, they threw him in a
No,
platoon with
I knew
guys.
nothing. Just when you go
Yeah.
through buds, that's what it is basic. They teach you basic things. they know you're trainable at that point when you get through, and then you learn all your stuff at the SEAL teams, more in depth. And so I hadn't even had a chance to go through training at the SEAL team before I got put in a platoon. So, deployed immediately. So I had to keep my mouth shut, and Dan he kind of took me under his wing. So I listened to everything he had to say and kept my mouth shut and got through it just fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then I think that was the only platoon we did together, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, that was, yeah. And then after that, I did 2 more deployments with Charlie Platoon in a row, which was unheard of.
Yeah, and I went in a couple other platoons.
Yeah, and then you went in a couple other platoons, yeah.
I'm just going to say it was easy to pick Mike out in that picture.
Yeah.
Because he was the newbie. Because he's the only one in that picture that's wearing ripstop. Everybody else had on poplin camis.
And that was on Guam. That picture was taken. Yeah, that picture was taken on Guam. And then, yeah, you can tell them about this one too, Mike.
No, that was just out training, and then we got together for a picture. But it's, you know what, that's my favorite picture. It came out good. The other guy in the picture, I think he's still around. He's on the East Coast, somewhere Virginia, I think. But we were all really good friends.
Yeah, that's me on the left, and our friend on the right, and that's Mike in the front kneeling down. And we were in the Philippines. They were doing demo and weapons training out at a place in Subic Bay called Green Beach. So we just snapped that picture, and it's hard to believe that was 37 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but it's a good picture. I mean, the way it looks a little rustic and all.
Yeah.
Plus, and you can see Mike's got his trigger finger in the safety position. Got my finger in.
Yeah, but no magazine.
I was like, I'd been over there before, and I thought to myself every time I went out there, because I mean, actually during that time frame, we had a lot going on with like terrorist groups, and they're called NPA and Hucks and all that, and we were kind of being blunt about it. You never knew when they were going to try to pull something on you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I admit, looking back on that, I was always a little hyper vigilant when we went out there, and because we used to go out there and spend a week or so at a time, Mike, right? Like a week. Yep. Yeah. Anyway, that's a good one from the Philippines there.
Yeah,
and I mean, anybody that's not familiar with military stuff, in that photo, that's kind of a rare photo, and that's some serious business right there, because you have M60 machine gun and 2 M203s.
Yeah, exactly.
The other guy in the picture, he's a big dude. He played football at Penn State.
Yeah, he looked pretty tall.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but when you were in a platoon like that and you had 2 squads, you always had a big appreciation for the really big guys because they carried the 60.
Mm-hmm.
They carried the 60. And there's a good one. That's my favorite right there. You can tell them about that one, Mike.
No, that was still the same deployment, but it was over in Malaysia.
Yep. That was Malaysia. Yeah, we were in Lamut there working with the Malaysian SEALs. That's Mike in the front row, second from the left? Yeah, and then I'm on the far front row on the far right. So that was, we did a lot of, we were there for about 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Yeah, we were there for a while.
In fact, it was funny when we got there. We realized that there wasn't any place around that served good American food. It was nothing but with a curry and stuff like that. We actually had a couple guys get sick from it, like diarrhea. And so the new guys were going into town. We were sending the new guys into town with a Malaysian SEAL every night. About $40-50 to get Kentucky Fried Chicken in that little town. This town was 30-40 clicks away, and we were sending guys into town for 3 weeks or a month. We ate Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was freaking hilarious, man. But anyway,
we did spend about a week out in the jungle doing some training.
We went with that week in the jungle. that's the picture that's on the platoon plaque, right? When we're around the fire.
Oh yeah.
With the monkey. Yeah,
Let's see what
that was hilarious. So there we are, 35 years later. That picture's taken about 35 years later. Mike and I on one of our first trips, and out at Rollinsville at the Moffett Tunnel, west of Rollinsville. And the Moffett Tunnel is a train tunnel that goes through the mountain, and I think it's 9 miles long, that tunnel, and it comes out on the west side of the Rockies at Winter Park. But we went out there just to do some. This is actually, I think, our first outing, wasn't it? Our first outing.
Yeah, that was the first one. Kind of test our equipment a little bit and get familiar with everything we had.
Yeah, we were testing equipment, taking pictures, hoping maybe a female Sasquatch would come out of the woods.
So, I'm assuming that never happened.
No, but we saw enough other stuff, including a train. So, yeah, there's a good one by the tree. So yeah, these pictures were already taken 2 years ago. Matter of fact, they were taken about 2 years ago next month in June. Yeah, June. So yeah. So there we are 35 years later looking for Sasquatch. So.
I was gonna say, I didn't think y'all had pre-planned all this.
No. Well, Dan's you probably heard his story, but he's thought about it since he was young. But now he's retired. He's like, well, let's do it. So
yeah,
why not?
Yeah, I was. Go ahead. Sorry.
Let's see what.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. There we go.
I love that picture. If you look at that picture, that's me, and we're doing a training dive, and I think that's a constellation. But you see the diver up behind me to the right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You see, he's got to see where his finger is in his hand there on that object. Then there's another arm coming down. That object is the edge of a screw on an aircraft carrier. That's the propeller of an aircraft carrier we're on. Yeah, and we were doing a combat swimmer training dive, and the guy in our platoon had the camera, and he snapped that picture, and I just made my eyes look big like that, just to joke around. But you can see, we're diving a rig with no bubbles too. But that's a screw right there, that object that they're the arms in front of, and the guy's looking over. That's the actual round edge of a screw on a naval aircraft carrier. So we're under the aircraft carrier. So that's a neat picture. I thought it would be fun to show that.
Wow.
I think that was all of those, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's got those.
So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks like you're having a lot of fun. Actually,
yeah, I mean, we did.
No, that was all. Okay.
It was rugged, but it was fun because you were so used to doing it. Like anybody in the military, you just start doing it, and it's like athletes and football players, and you just go out and do it because you're so used to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the story. Plus, I'm always proud of Mike at the fact too that he was on the jump team for a while. Mike was an actual member of the U.S. Navy parachute team, the leapfrogs. And then, well, you can tell them the rest. I don't want to.
Yeah, after I did 4 deployments out of SEAL Team 3, and then I got to go to the Navy parachute team. You try out for it. It's all SEALs that are on the team. Got on there, so I spent 3 years. That's kind of a timeout. After you do your 5 years, you get a kind of a timeout assignment. So I traveled the U.S. jumping in air shows and sporting events and all that.
Very cool.
That was a lot of fun. And from there, I went off to the Army's military freefall school to be an instructor there, and instructed the jump master course. So I was a jump master.
So you were definitely gold wings.
Yeah, I had a lot of experience at that point.
Yeah.
And in the teams, they'll say when you go that route, which isn't a lot of guys that call you an air god because you got way more jumps than everyone else has, because we were doing, I don't know, 4 a day just for practice and then go do the air shows and everything. And then all the jumps, being an instructor also. So that was, I don't want to say that was a lot of fun. The instructor job was a lot of fun, but it was out in Yuma, Arizona. And not my cup of tea. I like the ocean. I was out in the desert, and out 30 minutes away from town is where you lived.
Yeah.
Not much out there.
That'd be like you getting stuck at 29 Palms, Gary.
Been there.
You've been
Oh,
there,
God. Yeah.
yeah.
They should call it 29 stumps is what they should
Yeah,
call it.
29 stumps, yeah.
All right. Well, we're
Yeah,
gonna go ahead and put up this question. So Mick wants to know, which parts of your military training do you think will give you an edge in Sasquatch research, and do you apply any tactics that were taught to your unit?
You want to answer that, Mike?
No, you're the one that comes up with our tactics. So it's a matter of how much you want to give away.
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned this and made a remark about it in our first podcast we did a while back. A lot of things that you learn to do as a SEAL, the tactics and procedures and policy, it's kind of hush-hush stuff that I don't really ever talk about. But there is a lot that I took from my career. And even what I learned as a woodsman and a hunting and a outdoor enthusiast, like a lot of people in America, men and women alike, there's a lot of good trackers out there. There's a lot of good hunters. There's people that are very familiar with hunting and wildlife and tracking, especially when it comes to the old cliche of, in your own backyard. So a lot of the stuff that I have learned, and I will admit, not trying to sound arrogant, but like most guys in the teams and anybody in the military for that matter, and I think I said this in the first show we did too, to an extent, is that people in the military get damn good at what they do, and they pride themselves at being very good at what they do, just because they're in the military and they know the importance of, the team. But the team also has each individual link in it. So like a platoon and a squad, you all have to do your job to function as a unit cohesively and effectively. But there's a lot, that I learned that I do apply right now. And I'll say some, minuscule things to answer that question. The tactics or the procedures that I utilize right now are a combination of what I learned and the Navy as a SEAL, and also what I've learned from studying wildlife and being out in the open with them and in the wild with them, and plus what I've learned from almost over 50 years of studying the Sasquatch enigma. And like I've said before, a lot of it has to do with things that I learned in Dr. Jeff Meldrum's book, Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, because we have a cliche in the military, and a lot of people are familiar with it: know your enemy. And I'm not saying that Sasquatch is my enemy, but when you know what you're going after and you apply a really sound, functional, impetus and modus of operandi to second guess that entity that you're tracking. And that's what I do. I try to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of them. I do satellite map studies, wildlife studies of a certain area, where I pick 3 areas where I know, like deer, like people on their trail cams. I'm sure everybody out there has looked at trail cam videos on YouTube, and even your own. There's some really good ones where people left their trail cams sitting in a place for like 3 to 6 months, and you can watch the sped up version on YouTube, and you see the same animals coming through that same place all the time, because it's their, it's their sidewalk, it's their street, it's their neighborhood. That's where they're going to get their food or water, or whatever the heck they might be doing. And the same thing applies to Sasquatch. And again, I'm going to give Dr. Meldrum a lot of credit, because I utilized his theories about the correlation between black bears and Sasquatch habitat. And, I'll say it right now on the air tonight, the Hans Peak Columbine area that I hit pay dirt in this past year, and even this year now, because we're going to look at some pictures later tonight during the show of pretty convincing ones that I took of a peaker just last month. But, you know, that correlation between black bears and Sasquatch, one of these areas that Dr. Meldrum, in these, 26-mile wide areas that he picked where this is probably the most probable place where they'd be at, along with the black bears, because of the food supply and environment and everything else, panned out. The exact circle that I picked in the Columbine, Hans Peak, Summit Creek, Sand Mountain area was exactly one of Dr. Meldrum's circles or areas that he put on his Colorado map. And I'm going to go over that briefly during the big conference, which is only 12 days away. But yeah, that's what I do. Try to figure out where they're going to be, where they'll most likely be. And so far, I've hit pay dirt with it. And, you know, and the basics too is just going out there and sitting at night. You know, I've done it all my life. I'm used to it. And, you know, people raise their eyebrows because I had a lot of people raise their eyebrows at me at the Bigfoot Days Festival in Estes Park Saturday 2 weeks ago. And they said, well, when do you go out? And I said, sunset, about sometimes 3 a.m. They're like, what? I said, yeah, you want to get this done. And you can ask Mike how many times just training we've sat out at night, you know, for hours and hours from sunset to sunrise.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is you gotta have an idea of what area they'd be in. You covered that, which is like, you can be the best fisherman in the world. If you fish where there's no fish, you're not going to catch a fish, you know? So
Right.
That's the most important thing, is to pick that habitat that's good for black bear. That's what Jeff Meldrum would say, is that's the same habitat as a Sasquatch. So you know, food source, water source, and
Yep.
and then not being afraid to go out at night, which,
Yep.
you know, for most people, that's an issue.
Yeah.
For us,
Yeah.
we got very comfortable with it, and we're still comfortable with it. So that's an edge right there too.
Yeah.
And then we have equipment we can use at night to try and identify, you know, anything moving out there.
Right. And that's it. Just kind of staying 2 steps ahead of them to a degree and second guessing them. And then not only that, taking pretty much, you know, hands verbatim what witnesses, because another thing, the 2 places that I've going to continue to focus on in New Mexico and Colorado, we picked those places based also on the input of, you know, Dr. Meldrum's theory and plus our own deduction. And I can tell you another thing, what I've seen, and I can candidly and honestly say this now, and I'm comfortable saying it, after spending 7 months out there in Hans Peak, Summit Creek last year from May to November, December, I know that I saw them, and I've got pictures of them. I heard them with witnesses. And like I said, the tree knock that we heard back by Summit Creek last August, the power and intensity and volume of that tree knock was not something that any human being had the strength to perform. I know, but when you go out there and you just sit, you spend a lot of time and you're quiet. You got to go sit somewhere and just sit down and be still. And also enjoy the fact, and I'm going to say it candidly because I thought it was great. I was amazed how many other animals came up to me just sitting in the dark.
Yep.
I mean, everything you could dream of, including a moose. I was just sitting there up against the tree, and moose goes by, and I took a picture of her with my ATN. I got the pictures that I'll show at the conference. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's basically what we do, and that's what I'm doing. And that's how we apply, you know, and I guess a good generic Reader's Digest version of what I'm doing and now how it's working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And,
Mick
is kind of saying, you know, he said, you're right. The military does things right. Speaking as a former Canadian Forces reconnaissance soldier, Armored Corps, I'd say that it's due to practice and repetition.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's what it is. And it's also being familiar and comfortable in an environment. I mean, whether you're out in the boondocks by yourself or not, I mean, you know what to do. And I've said it before, I'm armed just in case. You know, I got bear spray, a 44 Magnum, you know, an air horn, I got a buck knife and, you know, everything. And I'd only use it as a last resort. And plus, now that I've been doing it and out there, I haven't had to use it. I mean, even with the daggone black bear getting near me, I mean, and everything, the stories I've told already, I'm like, you know, I don't think there's any danger by wildlife. I mean, unless you do something to spook them, or you know, get them lit, or you do something thinking that you're threatening their young. But yeah, he's right on that note, because people in the military, I always use this cliche. It's an adage of mine. You don't get a Call of Duty reset in our job. You know what I mean? You get hit and killed once. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's, to me, I was always a person where I accepted that reality. And I thought, you know, I mean, there were many times I thought I might not come back from this tonight, like a lot of other guys, not me, but a lot of people in the military. You know, they're thinking, am I going to come back from this tonight? And I think that on that note, like he was just saying about practice and repetition, we did it so much that when it came time to do it as a SEAL, and Mike can attest to this too, we had an old saying that the damn real world ops were easier than the training we did to get ready for them. I mean, really, in a lot of ways, that's how we felt sometimes. And when you felt that way about doing something, you know, you go, wow, you know, I'm glad we did do all that hard training, because it just makes things easier. And it's making things easier a lot now, because, you know, doing what I'm doing right now, it's not that hard. Because me and Mike there's been nights me and Mike just pulled over on the side of a dirt road, turned off the car and rolled down the windows and sat there in the dark and just listened. Because another thing, like I've said before, people in the military will agree with me, especially night guys, special forces and all. If you worked in the dark, you know that your ears or your eyes in the dark at night, especially on a moonless night, you see with your ears. And let me tell you, when you're out in the boondocks at night doing that, it's true. And if you've ever been on a real world op, you're listening to people move around you and you can hear them, but you can't see them, you know, it gets you going too. So that's how we did. That's how I'm doing it, to keep it simple. So.
All right, so we are at the halfway point. So what that means is we're going to play this song that I made for you and Mike. So we'll see if you guys like it here.
Turn hunter stock.
There you go. I remembered you said you liked that 80s rock.
That's awesome.
That was great.
That was really cool.
I thought that was Megadeth.
That had some old, like 1980s hair band metal. That was all right.
Exactly,
Yep.
Crocus.
If it won't have fit Dan or Mike, either one, on mixed question, I'm going to throw something at it. From I don't think Mike knows I was a Marine.
Yeah.
And I joined in '88. And one of the things that I try to use in my Bigfoot research is one of the things that we was taught was when you're in the forest, slow down.
Yep.
Take your time, know where you're at, look for the obvious that's out of place. Broken limbs, something disturbed on the ground, any kind of disturbance, anything like that. But slow down, take your time. And another thing that people don't realize too is when you're in the military, they set you up for success. You're given equipment, you're given rations, you have all this training and everything else. Now, as a civilian going out and trying to do this, you kind of need to have that mindset too. Especially we had the two guys that froze to death in Washington in December. Prepare. Take your food, take your water, take clothing. Even if you're going on a small hike, be ready to be stuck somewhere. Be prepared. Don't go out there empty-handed, or you're going to be, in trouble, big time.
Yeah, and that's true, and it's what was being prepared, ready, because I'm looking back on our career. I remember the links we went to just to get environmental and weather intel for an op and stuff, before we went out at night. So yeah, it's true. And plus, usually when I go out in the field, if I'm on foot with my big mule camelback I usually have at least stuff in there for 3 days, food and water, compact and medical kit. And I bring extra clothes, warm clothes, poncho liner. Even Mike knows when we used to go out, we were in the teams. Not only me, but most of us, we always carried extra stuff just to make sure you're ready, and prepared. Was that the 5 P's prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance? Yeah, that's how it went. Yeah, the P's. Yeah, we live by that. So, and then 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
That's right.
Stuff like that. So yeah, be prepared. And then and another thing, be safe. Like Gary's saying on that note, know your limits. Don't go out, because years ago, a friend of mine and I, we were up on Twin Sisters out by Lily Lake in Estes Park. We got to the summit of Twin Sisters like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was June or early June. There was a freak snowstorm, a little bit of sleet and snow, got really cold. We were up there and we found these 4 girls from New Jersey or New York huddled in these rocks through this little keyhole area where there's some stables, like riding for your horses at the summit, near the summit, Twin Sisters Peak out here. And they were in like shorts and like t-shirts and halter tops with just tennis shoes. And they were all huddled up and we're like, come on, get up. That's when I ran a lot still. We ran them down the mountain, about 40-minute runs, just to get them moving. Got them warm, got them to the bottom of the mountain to the parking lot there, right across the highway from Lily Lake, if anybody's ever familiar with it. But, you want to be ready and know your environment, know what you're doing. And another thing, don't go out to the point where you can't get back, from your physical. It's like people swimming. I've seen people go out in Hawaii. I'm like, what are they doing out there? And next thing you know, lifeguards are going to get them because they got out and they couldn't come back because they didn't have the endurance and the steam. So, a lot of it's common sense and know your place and just be safe. Even in Dr. Meldrum's flyer here that I like to refer to a lot, the Sasquatch field guide, he's got a warning in here about that I love. It's about being safe when you're around wild animals, just in case, but it's in there if you ever get one. So be safe.
Yep.
Know your limits and be prepared.
Mick has another question.
Go ahead,
he was wanting to know if anyone tried to hoax you And if they did you take them out behind the woodshed afterwards?
Well, that's a good question, because I'll tell you what, it's ironic that you asked me that, because I was out in Rollinsville last September, and right there, the highway that comes down from Netherland and goes into Blackhawk and then the back way into Golden, right at Rollinsville there's a train tracks that come through, in the little hamlet, town, or village of Rollinsville is right there at the road, Moffett Road, that goes west out to the tunnel. And on the east side of the road there at the intersection, there's a store and there's a little bar there on the left. And I was sitting there with a friend of mine. The place was packed. It was like happy hour. And this young guy got up from down the bar, and he kept looking over at me. And he came down, and he goes, "Hey, are you the SEAL? Are you the retired SEAL? Are you ex-SEAL?" I said, "Yeah," because I had my car parked out front, Colorado UDT SEAL plates on it. But he asked me what I was doing now, and I told him, and he got all flippant. He was an ex-Army guy, and he goes, "You're doing what?" I said, "I'm looking for Bigfoot. I got my own organization." And I guess he kind of looked down his nose at me because I told him that. And he goes, "Don't you think that's kind of embarrassing as a retired SEAL?" And I thought to myself, how is that embarrassing? I mean, there's guys that I know that were in the teams now that run their own rock band. Mm-hmm. They've been pretty successful with it. So, we weren't all born to be brain surgeons and astronauts. And, the world goes around by all the different things that different people choose to do in life. That's what makes the world go around, and really what makes us so unique as a race of people. Well, I don't care what color skin you are either, but he actually told me that sitting there at the bar. He knocked down a beer or two, and he looked me right in the eye, and he smirked, and he goes, "You better watch it." And I kind of looked at him, and I went, "What'd you say?" He goes, "You better watch it." I said, "What do I need to watch? Like, I'm gonna watch a rerun of Star Wars or what?" I was starting to prod him pretty good, and he was like, "No, you know what I mean." I said, "No." I said, when you say you watch it, are you threatening me?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, he goes, "Yeah, in a way." I said, "Well, how are you threatening me?" He goes, "I'm going to hoax you, man." I said, "You are?" He said that to my face. And there were, friends sitting here, a couple of people here. And I got to admit, I'm not going to lie to you. I just kind of smirked at him. And I said, "Well, how are you going to hoax me?" And he goes, "Well, I'm a paramedic in Denver." I said, "You are?" I said, "Well, good. Thanks for what you're doing, because, along military and law enforcement, that's daggone great. And everybody else in the hospitals and first responders and firemen." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, I'm gonna hoax you." And I said, "Well, good luck." That's all I said to him. I just looked at him and I said, "Good luck." So he made that, I'm going to call it a threat. I didn't take it too seriously, but I just still thought it was kind of comical. But no one's tried to hoax me yet. And there were I think 2 times last year out in Summit Creek and Columbine, where I thought, I wonder if somebody's out here doing that. And I checked the area out. Like, I went back in there a couple times and got results again, by sitting in the same spot for like 6-7 hours during the evening. I even looked at the place, before sundown, went through it, scoured it up and down the half-mile, quarter-mile area, because I pick areas to work in and I stay in them, for like 2-3 weeks at a time. I do that too. And when you go through it, just like we do in the military, they send you in to reconnoiter and get intelligence, find out what's in there. And I can honestly say that there wasn't anybody in there. And then the pictures that I got, I knew they weren't human. And the tree knock that I heard last August, there's no person on this planet that could hit a tree that hard as a human being. I don't care who you are. Arnold in his prime couldn't have done it. So, not that I know of. I haven't had anybody hoax me yet. And also, I guess
the other big thing is no one knows we're out there.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
you definitely don't, throw up an announcement. Hey, we're going to be out at.
well, and that's another thing that I do. Just
We're
like
in areas.
yeah, I go out randomly and very random so that
Mm,
I don't set a pattern, you know,
right.
and I do that. And another thing, like I said, it's like one of the things we do, and guys that are SF and people that have done it, they know, like one of the things we do, I can talk about it a little candidly, is that when we insert into an area, like, you know, we usually sit for a while and listen. We don't move for a while to hear what's going on around us. And, we can tell. There's another thing too, is I've learned, and I had this happen during my career, where we just sat in a place and didn't move. And the patience factor kicked in because the people that we were going up against, they didn't have the patience we had, and they blew it because they started moving. They made noise,
Uh-huh.
it's just like when a wild animal or, like fawns have a predator near, mom goes hide them. And, if you could talk deer talk, I'm sure mom's going, lay your butts down here and don't move, or you're going to get chomped by a freaking mountain lion tonight. And the kids know what she's telling them
Yeah.
because I've seen it in the wild. I've seen a mom shelter her freaking fawns before. I saw a black bear and a mountain lion come by in the distance, and I was like going, wow, that's pretty amazing. So yeah, there's a lot of variables. I won't go into it all, but I haven't had anybody try to hoax me yet. And I know for a fact too that the places I've been in the time of night that I was there wasn't anybody out there but me and, nature
Yeah,
and
no
wildlife.
one's moving at night out there.
No.
Yeah.
It's very few people out there moving at night.
Well, and
Out
plus
in
the
woods.
people, and if the
Yeah.
people, another thing too, I'll tell everybody, I was a sniper in 3 of the 8 SEAL platoons I did. My last 3 platoons, I became a sniper, and I went through sniper school. And if anybody's been especially the Marine guys, scout snipers, and everybody else, SEAL snipers, they're freaking, they're crack. They're not the kind of people that you want to ever have to go up against because they got the patience of a damn stalking tiger.
Yeah.
I mean, I've laid in places before with a ghillie suit on for days, just training, and not in a hide, not in a building. I'm talking about out in the open, laying in the grass, doing our thing, and to hone your skills and patience level to do that. And I know Gary and Mike can attest to this, that people that do become snipers in the military, they're a freaking rare breed. I mean, to be able to have the nerves and the patience to do that crap, whether, I don't care what environment you're in, but, I mean, look up some of the stuff. I know it was a movie, but Mark Wahlberg in that movie Shooter.
Yeah, that was a good one.
No, that movie was like, whoa. But, a lot of guys that have been snipers, SEAL and other forces, my kudos to you and my highest respect and regards, because it takes a lot of nerves of steel and patience to sit there. Matter of fact, just last week, I went and saw the movie Warfare. I don't know if you guys have heard about it yet.
I've heard about it.
I saw it and I was like, holy, and that was after my day because I retired in 99. Me and Mike never did that stuff like they did after 9/11. But even in that movie, you can see the overall temperance, patience, and mettle that guy had. That was that element sniper there where they were in that movie. So if you want to get the chance to go see it, I'd highly recommend it. So anyway, kudos.
All right.
If you don't mind, I've got it's
Yep.
kind of a 2-part question. I'm going to start off with Mike. The first part of the question is, Mike, since you've moved to Florida, have you found any evidence or got any stories together or anything of any of the Florida skunk ape, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it down there?
No, not yet. And I haven't been able to get out like that. I moved with my girlfriend and her 2 boys, and it's been 6 months. So we've been getting set up, getting them into schools, me getting up and running with the jobs, and I haven't been able to get out yet. And I was just telling Dan, I got to get on it. And I got to ask, when we see Professor Meldrum here in a week and a half, I'll have to ask him a little more about Florida and the hot spots that he knows of, that from feedback from people.
Now, the second part of the question is kind of for both of you guys. If, let's say that either one of you, Mike or Dan, either one, you come up on something, I mean, solid, and you know what I'm talking about, solid.
Right.
Okay. Would that be like all hands on deck, boom to Colorado or boom to Florida?
I haven't really addressed that issue yet, but right now, the initial reaction that I would have with it, to be honest with you, as far as big goes and the way I'm doing things as a director and the president, if I get anything solid, I think first thing I'm going to go for person I'm going to go to, I'm going to contact Dr. Meldrum and get him in on it right away, because of the association that I have with him. And then we'll
It
take
would
it
be
from there.
Colorado. That's the base of it.
Yeah. And then take it from there, because like I've said before, and I'm very serious about it. And, with the things I've done in my life, I'm convinced that I can do it, is I want to get to the point where I can actually bond and form some type of relationship with them, even if it's at a standoff distance to where they feel maybe comfortable enough to come out and expose themselves to me, or maybe some type of interaction at even if it's at a distance, because, if I remember correctly, like one of the stories I really was enthralled by was Mr. Moorhead's story of, when he was up there in the Sierras filming or recording, the Sierra sounds back in the 70s. He said there was an incident one night where one of them came out and ran by him. And I think he said something in his story to the effect that it seemed to him like it reached out and tried to touch him when it went by. I think that's the way his story went, because I've read so much stuff. But I really honestly believe that, like any other animal, that if you get comfortable with them, they get comfortable with you, and they sense that you're not a threat or a danger, and they get to the point where they trust you. I really do believe that anybody could happen to. You could end up having them get out in the open, even if it's at a distance from you, where you could get some really good pictures and video. And I joke and say, yeah, my ultimate goal is to sit on a log with a campfire with a can of root beer and some marshmallows with one. No, that's just a joke. I got a sense of humor, but that's my goal, is hopefully maybe if that can happen and make it happen and it transpires someday, maybe film it and then maybe have it stand still where I can clip some hair off and give it to Doc. I don't know. But no, that's my ultimate goal. But I think initially right now, I'd contact Dr. Meldrum if we had anything monumental first off, and then, take it from there, because, something like that, you don't know where it's going to go really, especially if the media gets involved and everything else. So I really haven't planned that far in advance yet, but initially I get a hold of Dr. Meldrum and say, hey, I'd probably even, if he wanted me to, go up there if I could and give him the evidence, if it were possible, if he wanted to do that, and then get his recommendations and then his analysis and, his input on it, and then take it from there.
Yep.
So,
Excellent answer. Don't give up hope yet. I'm telling you, Florida has some really good sightings.
yeah.
Oh, I believe it. There was just an incident, the first black bear attack out here in Florida was like a week or two ago. I think Dan read that also. Really remote. It's right in the center of Florida.
Yeah. It's
and the way
Is that the one
Professor
where
Meldrum would say it.
the bear killed the guy in his trailer?
got his dog too, according to the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the dog, yeah.
He was
But,
89 years old.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
he
he was way up there in age.
It's sad,
But like you said, the way Professor Meldrum would say is, if black bear's there, that's same habitat as Sasquatch. Doesn't mean the Sasquatch is there, but that's the kind of habitat they live in.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, I'm gonna start showing these pictures so that
ahead, Bill.
y'all can explain them.
Oh yeah. Hey, good questions, Gary. Thanks. So you want me to go ahead and narrate, Billy?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. This picture was taken almost a month ago out near Columbine, Colorado. And I stayed out there, 5 hours that night from 9 to 2 a.m. Yeah, about 9 to 2. But anyway, I was patrolling the road. Another recommendation by Dr. Meldrum, looking for footprints on the mud and the snowbanks, and caught a glimpse of something with my big old floodlight that I had, and I flashed it over there. So everybody that's at home looking at this right now, I'll go ahead and narrate this to you and describe it to you. Then you can make up your own mind and decide. But when you look at this picture at that snowbank, in the middle of the picture almost, see those 3 big tree trunks? And you got the big one in the middle, the largest, and then the 2 smaller ones on each side of it. Well, if you look at the right side of the large tree in the middle, then, well, actually just look between the large tree in the middle and the tree trunk on the right, where that first branch goes up at an angle to the right off the big one in the middle at a 45-degree angle. If you look up about halfway up that branch and then go across horizontally, you'll see a black outline, which is completely unnatural for vegetation, because vegetation, especially evergreens like that don't shed during the winter, there's a black outline with straight lines and et cetera, filling that gap between the middle tree and the right tree. So what I did was, with this picture, after I took it, I started zooming in. So we'll zoom in on it now. We'll go in the next step.
Let's see. Let me find the next one in.
So there's the circle that I put there. And if you look at that black horizontal outline figure, it's going across from the side of the trunk on the middle tree, across through the vegetation, and it goes out like a trapezius and then up. But there you can see the figure that I'm pointing out to you. And then we'll zoom in again.
Okay.
So now you know where it's at. We'll zoom in closer.
Okay. Get the right one.
Did you look at these already, Gary?
Yeah, I got a quick look at them before we came on. One of the biggest things that I wanted to note is, for the guests, as you're looking at these photos, if you look at the shadows that are in the trees and then look at what's outlined, what is outlined is darker. It's a lot darker color than even the shadows in the trees.
Yep, exactly. The texture, and that's great, because I was going to mention that. But there you get a step closer. You can see at the bottom of that branch on the big tree in the middle, just above it, going up to the right, there's a little branch going across. And if you come up above that, you can see the straight line of black that comes up that looks like a head, then off the other side. And then on the far right, there's a black splotch there, and that's the hand. So you can go in closer.
All right.
Billy. Yep.
Me.
This was a good one, because that one, just like the other one, just caught me like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's another thing I did as a SEAL.
Is that the next one, or is that the same one?
No, that's the same one.
All right, hold on.
That's a good point that Gary just made about the texture and the hewn or the. So now we're getting closer.
Yeah.
In the picture, and again, coming up the middle big tree there, the first branch going off to the right, up at a 45-degree angle. You see those 2 little branches coming across from that branch over to the left, and it looks like they're touching the right side of the big tree. Well, if you look in that gap between those 2 little twigs, there's a huge black straight line that comes up, and that's the trapezius muscle of his right trapezius. And you go up, you can see the point of the head, and then you go to the right side, that's the trapezius and the arm sticking out, and the black blotch on the right side at the end, that's the hand. It's the digits. And the little circle or elliptical down at the bottom, I'm convinced that that's the creature's right foot sticking forward. It's standing like back on one leg with one leg forward. And as we zoom in on that, you'll see what looks like a foot and toenails, literally. So you can go to the next one. Pretty good pictures.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
It's even better. Now we're in close, and I labeled this so you can see the right trapezius muscle where the straight line is, the point of the head, which I'm convinced that's the point of the head, the skull. Then you can see the left trapezius muscle and the chin. And then on the far right there, you can see the hand coming out with the thumb and the hands and the fingers. I know it's a little blotchy, but that's it. And I'm actually convinced right now, I'm going to throw this out tonight too on a anatomy level, that I'm convinced, and I think the same trait is prevalent with like gorillas, where male gorillas have a more pronounced, larger and pointed skull. I'm not an expert like Dr. Meldrum, and the females' heads are not as pointed and big and large with that pointed feature as the males. And I believe that this is the female because her head is nowhere near as pointed as the other one that I photographed last August in the trees, which you guys have seen that one too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So if you see this outline, you can see that I'm pretty convinced that's her, and she's looking at me. And you can even see the white of her chin there in the black, and that's it. And you can see how she's in between the trees. It's another entity. It's not trees. They're not going vertical like trees grow. It's going horizontal. And that's the perfect outline. Matter of fact, if you come down where it says right trap, if you follow right below that limb and come down where the R is in trap, between those two little limbs or twigs sticking out, going from the branch to the tree trunk to the left, you'll see what looks like her deltoid. I'm convinced that that's probably her deltoid there on her right shoulder. But you know, there you go. And that shows you how another thing about guys in the military and SF that have done what we've done, it's easy to be camouflaged and hide yourself if you want to, or be obscure and get lost in the natural lines. I mean, they teach you that. It's the basics of camouflage. Anybody that's been in the military knows about breaking up lines, putting black and green on your face, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see how she's standing there, and she's almost like one with the environment. And I think that the only reason why I caught her, if you will, is because of my training, my eye. I saw it right away and it stuck out. And and if I'll make a joke, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but if I was on an op, I would have yelled contact left. You know what I mean? Call. Yeah. So
do you have a height estimation on that, Daniel?
Pardon me?
Do you have a height estimation on that?
I'm going to go back to the site. I was supposed to go this week, but I twisted my daggone ankle the other day. But I'm going to go back to the site and measure it, because I know I'd say she's probably 7 feet, maybe 7 feet. Yeah, 7 feet tall.
That limb that's coming up, that is substantial. That's not a small limb. That's probably as big as your arm or bigger.
Oh, yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah.
And that is a substantial size limb. And I mean, you can see, like I said, the outline is darker than the shadowing.
Right.
And you can see it come way down even into the crotch of that limb, where that limb comes out. You can see the dark going down into that.
Yep, exactly. And that's her body or torso. Like those black splotches right under, a little to the right where the word chin is and everything. That's her torso, you know, probably maybe right below her chest or breast and going into her mid-abdomen waist area, filling in that spot. And that's another thing. You see the fill of whatever in there going horizontally and vertically. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you want to go to the next one, which I really like.
Yeah, this next one I think is the foot, I believe.
Yeah, which really got me on this one.
Let me see.
Yeah, I think she's standing with one leg back and one up. So yeah, if you look at the arrows right there, and you see the scraggly fur there to the right, intersecting the tree trunk on the right side of the tree trunk, that's fur, and I'm convinced that's her ankle. And if you look at the little black arrows, I'm convinced that that's her toes of her right foot, and toenails, especially
Yep.
the one object that I've deduced there. And like I said, I'm using my photo analysis skill from my career. If you look at that far right arrow of the right foot, that's what I'm convinced is the big toe, and the white area is actually her toenail. And if you look at it real close, especially the far right one of the 5 arrows, you'll see, damn it, that does look like a big toe and a toenail.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Very
maybe
cool.
so that was taken about a month ago in the area. So
I'm gonna throw this out there too. That was an excellent job in enlarging those photos because it's not so pixelated that you can't discern details.
Right.
yeah, and that's why I did it like that too, because I wanted people to be able to see it. And I think that people that have done photo reconnaissance and intel and stuff like that, and they know about depth of field and everything else, like you say, that's completely not normal, especially being in evergreens that time of the year, because the other trees haven't bloomed yet, and it's just obvious what it is. And I've got some other pictures too that I'm going to show in my presentation at the conference in a week and a half, 2 weeks, that are phenomenal, because I did find footprints, found several sets of footprints in the area. And the thing that I've noticed about my work there in the last 7 months is I have found footprints, and I found a few in the snow, which was my impetus during the winter, is to go out and check and see if they move around in the snow. And that's where I've seen a variation in the size of the prints that I found. And that's why I'm thinking there might be a male, female, and a juvenile out there. So,
Yeah. I figure we better show, remember you sent me a highlight of the 2024 conference.
Oh, yeah, you can show that.
So let me show that.
Yeah, this is from...
So there we have it.
So yeah, the conference is great. This will be our 3rd one, and if you can make it and you're in the area or wherever you're at, if you want to get away on an early Memorial Day summer trip, stop by. We'd love to have you, because I'm telling you, this year, like I said, the lineup Mike's coming in this year. Dr. Meldrum will be there. Jim Myers from the Sasquatch Outpost out here in Bailey, Colorado, and he spoke at our conference last year, Dr. Meldrum. And plus this year, we also have Beans Baxter, Larry, coming down from Homer, Alaska, and he runs his own investigative group up there, and he's the curator and the director and the founder of Sasquatch podcast, and I've been on his show. Larry's going to come down, and he's going to give a great presentation on the Chatham, Alaska mystery, and he's got stuff from his background that's really good, because letting everybody know that's out there watching tonight, he's an Army veteran and a former police officer, detective in Homer, Alaska too, and he's got some great stuff that he's going to convey to everybody that's there in his presentation on what's going on up there in Alaska near Homer. And he also sent me, I want to tell everybody this, about a month and a half ago. He sent me a recording of a night vocal that he made one night out there, and I was like, holy moly, should have heard it. And I'm going to put it on my website probably sometime next week. But that's the lineup for the big conference this year. And again, it's going to be May 24th in Broomfield, Colorado at the Omni Interlaken Resort. That's our lineup. We're going to have a great troupe there this year. It was great last year. We had a lot of fun, good food. And again, we're going to have the lottery, our raffle drawing, and 9 people get to have lunch one-on-one with Dr. Meldrum. Then we'll have vendors there. We're even going to have a little contest this year. I put together, just for the fun of it, some CGI made Bigfoot pictures where I CGI'd a Bigfoot into wilderness pictures, and we're going to have a contest called Find the Bigfoot. People in the crowd that can find the Bigfoot in the picture where I superimposed it, they're going to get a big t-shirt or a big ball cap. But I asked you, had a person cracked me up when I was up at Estes Park a couple weeks ago, said, why don't you give them a free 2-week trip to Maui? I'm like, we're finding a Sasquatch in a frickin' I was like, anyway, I thought that was funny.
Well, free 2-week trip to Maui. I may fly to Colorado to see if I can.
Like that. Hey, all you got to do is find a Bigfoot hiding in the trees where I put it, with a CGI scam. But yeah, that's the depth of it. So yeah, this will be our 3rd year, and we're looking forward to doing it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And those are the highlights from last year. And I think we had about 75 people there last year, Mike, 60, 75, something like that.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Somewhere around there, but it's fun. It's a good venue. And even if you come out from a distance, believe me, there's a lot to do around here, including right up at Estes Park, an hour away. You can go to Rocky Mountain National Park. And I know they got some crazy rules now for getting in there during the day, where I think you got to register, or if you want to just go in on your own without registering, you got to be there by 9 a.m. to do it. And then they open it up to people just coming in again at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. But between 9 and 2 now, to get into the park, I think you've got to be pre-registered. So that's to cut down on the crowds. And Bigfoot Days was a blast. I couldn't tell you how much fun I had up there in Estes Park doing that 2 weeks ago. It was a lot of fun. So that's the deal. That's the gouge on the big conference 25 coming up.
Very good. All right. So before everybody takes off, we'll go ahead and do our contest question. So everybody get your fingers ready on your keyboards.
And what do they get? Is this for a treat?
Well, today,
Maui.
I've only got 2 getting. No, they're not going to Maui.
Just joking.
So they can, I'm going to let them pick. They can either, I've got 2 DVDs left. I've got Indiana Jones, The Kingdom of Crystal Skull. And then I have the DVD of the Mothman Prophecies. So we'll let them take their pick. All right, so here is the question. Nobody blurt this out now. Got to let them answer it in the chat. What year did Paul Freeman film his famous footage?
I actually think I know the answer to this one.
What year did Paul Freeman film his famous Bigfoot footage? Nope, not 82.
82.
I'll be honest, I thought it was way back then too, but found out I was wrong.
No.
See who else is going to get it. Mick, you might as well take a shot at it. Dirtbag Squatching got it.
94.
That is the answer right there.
94.
Paul Freeman filmed the famous Bigfoot footage 1994. The footage was reportedly captured in the Blue Mountains region of northeastern Oregon. All right, so that means Dirtbag Squatching, I am going to give you an email address. Here you go. If you email me your mailing address Well, here, let me ask you this first. Which one of the DVDs do you want? Because you get to pick. Do you want the Mothman Prophecies, or do you want Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Which one do you want? I'll give you time to answer that.
If I can guess which one he wants, can I go to Maui?
Y'all might as well just get Maui out of your mind, okay?
There's good shark wrestling over there, man. Shark
Yeah,
wrestling.
I don't know. I watched the show the other night. You know where they used to lower people in the cages, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and one of them got in there. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, you know,
they've outlawed that now. They won't do it.
You know, it's amazing. I think I mentioned it before. Go on YouTube and Google Ocean Ramsey and watch that woman in the water with them out there. She's an oceanographer. It's amazing. If you want to, I'm sure people have probably seen her already, but for some people that haven't, Google Ocean Ramsey and check out some of her videos. It's amazing. It's amazing.
All right, so Dirtbag Squatching, if you don't want to answer it in here, when you send your email with your mailing address, you can just tell me which one you prefer. And then I'll get that mailed to you right away.
Mick, it's not going to do you any good. I'm a cheap date. It's nothing but McDonald's, pal.
He said, but he said he is willing to give you the new chicken tenders that they just brought out. So that's a plus.
There you go.
Right now, I think they're $5.
Yep.
That's a heck of a deal.
That's right. They actually look like real chicken this time. So
It's awesome.
What was that old comedian said? He said, I'm trying to figure out what part of the chicken is the McNuggets.
Nobody knows.
Maybe we'd be better off not knowing that.
Maybe.
What you don't know can't hurt you, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
We had some chicken at the prison one time that made everybody sick. And that was my running joke that the chicken had come from Chernobyl farms.
Yeah. That's right. That's right up there with some other stories I've heard, like from Mike when he worked in the jail. Mike told me some stories. I'll tell you those later.
Well, we appreciate it, Dan and Mike, both of you coming on tonight.
Definitely.
And
Yeah,
if you guys have time to hang on after the show, we'll come back and have a discussion.
Yep, we'll do it. Hey, it's great to have everybody here tonight. Great seeing you again, and hope I answered your questions adequately, and keep up the good work. Maybe somebody's going to hit the Bigfoot lottery sooner or later. Like I said, if they grab you by the ankle and start using it as a tree knocker, if you're not alone, make sure they don't stop filming it. It'll be over with before you know it.
Just an update, Gary. I didn't know if you'd looked or not, but we are now over 3,800 subscribers.
Yeah, I have been checking it. That's awesome.
So we are at this point, we're growing 400 subscribers per week.
That's great. That's awesome.
So
good. Congrats.
Thank all of you. We appreciate every one of our viewers.
And in closing tonight, I hope that the people that are out there, whether you're an enthusiast or a researcher or you're actively looking for them, I wish you the best. Be safe and, have at it and keep up the good work. And I look at it like, there's a lot of skeptics out there, but the beautiful thing about this in the realm of humanity is that jokingly and serious note, I can be like that. We're all in this together. So, I mean, I've had a lot.
Maybe you might have to take one for the team.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's like, just keep plugging away. Cause in closing tonight, when I was a kid growing up, telling everybody I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, the only person that never told me I was out of my mind and that I could do it was my grandmother. And believe it or not, we actually have old home video or movies think his old 16 millimeter. I think one of my sisters
Yep.
has it, where I'm actually talking about being a Navy frogman and parachuting into the water out of a helicopter at my grandmother's house when I was a little kid up in New Haven, Connecticut. And so, you know, just no matter what people say, keep doing it because they're real. There's a lot of people out there that are incredulous, and that's their, you know, that's their prerogative. But, you know, when you're that incredulous, you know, that's your prerogative. That's your own, that's your choice to make. But in the end of it, when they do come to the point where we find them and we get really hardcore legitimate evidence, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Sit back and celebrate it. Across the spectrum, everybody, it's going to be great, you know, because it's going to be a big, 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 aha, I told you so. So just run with it and have fun, and we'll see you next time. God bless.
All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next Monday night, 9 p.m. Good night, everybody.
We are proud to announce that Sasquatch Watch Radio and the Bigfoot Investigative Group have joined forces. We are the exclusive podcast for Big. Tune in on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern for a live video podcast each week. Sign up for our email list at squatchradio.com and subscribe to us on YouTube. Never miss an exciting episode. Sasquatch Watch Radio, the exclusive podcast for the Navy SEALs team of Big.